this is just so, I can't even reiterate how this just does not happen this way. The fact that you walked into Roush and got a meeting is remarkable.
People always say to dream big, to believe in yourself, and to work hard because
anything's possible.
But what if you were a 21-year-old sprint car driver with only 6 career wins and no real experience driving a stock car, and your dream was to compete in the NASCAR Cup Series? That sounds like a long shot at best, yet in 2015, that was Chase Briscoe's reality. He had poured everything into chasing his dream, but it wasn't enough. Out of options, he packed up and left Charlotte, North Carolina, heading back to his hometown in Indiana. On the way, he called his mom, tears streaming down his face, and told her it was over. His dream crushed. He had failed. As he hung up the phone, silence filled the car, broken only by the hum of the highway. He drove down the I-75, feeling like his journey had ended. And then... Fast forward 10 years, and Briscoe has run nearly 150 Cup races, won races in all of NASCAR's major series, and is about to take over one of the most coveted and competitive cars in all of NASCAR, the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. But how do you go from crying on the side of the I-75 to becoming one of the faces of NASCAR in less than a decade? Briscoe spent his teenage years driving sprint cars on the dirt tracks of Indiana. Though he managed to pick up some wins, the victories weren't enough to keep his racing career alive. Money for racing had dried up. With no clear path forward, Chase knew he needed a new plan. In 2014, at just 20 years old, he moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, hoping to break into motorsports any way he could. Mechanic, spotter, driver, he wasn't picky. He just knew he wanted to be a part of the sport he loved. To get his foot in the door, Briscoe started volunteering at Brian Kozlowski's race shop. On weekends, he picked up small gigs as a spotter for Brian, earning $300 per race. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to keep him close to the action. Around this time, Briscoe met Ross Weiss, a videographer who shared his passion for dirt racing. The two hit it off immediately. Chase made a proposition, $50 a month to sleep on an air mattress in Weiss's apartment. Ross agreed, and the rest of Chase's budget, just $250 a month, went to Wendy's, where he lived off the dollar menu nearly every day for 2 years. Not long after Chase settled in, another host guest arrived. His friend and fellow dirt track racer, Christopher Bell. Bell and Briscoe both grew up driving sprint cars in the Midwest, but their careers couldn't have been more different. While Briscoe had struggled to find consistent success, Bell was winning everything in sight. Bell didn't come to Charlotte looking for an opportunity, he came to choose one. Teams and manufacturers were lining up to work with him, and his future in racing seemed almost inevitable. As Bell found his footing in North Carolina, he also moved into Ross Weiss's apartment. Briscoe, ever adaptable, gave up the air mattress and moved to the coach, making room for his friend. For Briscoe, this dynamic was a reminder of how far he still had to go. While Bell was already being courted by top teams, Briscoe was scraping by, clinging to this dream with little more than sheer determination and faith. Christopher Bell eventually signed a developmental deal with Toyota, securing a spot with Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series, a move that would shape his path for the next few years. Ford Racing made one final push to lure him away, hoping to change his mind, but Bell turned them down. But rather than simply closing the door, Bell passed Ford's contact information to his roommate, Chase Briscoe. For Briscoe, who had been grinding away with little recognition, it was a rare opportunity, a chance to get his name in front of people who could potentially give him a shot. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a start. So Chase Briscoe, with literally nothing to lose, showed up unannounced at the office of the Ford representative Christopher Bell had mentioned and asked for a meeting.
I was good friends with Christopher Bell, and he had this opportunity, and it was almost the Ford development deal. Well, he was already signed up at Toyota, so he called me, hey, they offered me this. I'm not going to take it, just to let you know, if you want to try to pursue it. So here I am. I just walk in Roush's front door. I had the guy's name. I said, hey, is this guy here? I'd like to talk to him. And I don't know how I got a meeting, but somehow I got this meeting.
In that meeting, Briscoe made his case. The rep, confused by the unexpected visitor, let alone how Briscoe even knew about the developmental deal, listened as Briscoe poured his heart out. He wasn't a big name or a proven winner, but he promised to keep the rep updated on his progress. Weeks turned into months, and Briscoe heard nothing back. In the meantime, he kept grinding, volunteering at race shops for 12 hours a day and spotting races whenever he could. But the Wendy's dollar menu was wearing thin, and the toll of the grind was catching up to him. Briscoe had given it his all, but it seemed like his dream just wasn't going to happen. Finally, he decided it was time to move on. Briscoe packed up his belongings, loaded his car, and began the drive home to Indiana. Down I-75, his dream was over. And then...
I get a call from this guy named Kerry Scherer, who's the co-owner of Cunningham Motorsports. And he says, hey, Chase, we've heard your name thrown around a couple times from a couple people. We're actually going to take this car to test in a couple months if you'd be interested in maybe driving it.
He invited Chase to join Tom Hessert for a test session at Mobile International Speedway in Alabama. The plan was for Hessert to get their laps in, and if there was time left, Chase could have a shot behind the wheel. There was time left, and Chase got his chance, but it didn't go well. With almost no stock car experience and running on tires with 100 laps already on them, Briscoe struggled.
So I get out, and he goes, so what'd you think? I said, I just blew my shot, didn't I? And he goes, yeah, it wasn't good. I'm not going to lie to you. And I remember calling my dad, and I was like, I just blew it. This team, there's no way they're going to do anything with me.
When the session ended, Chad Bryant, the crew chief overseeing the test, didn't sugarcoat it. Chase had blown it. But Bryant couldn't shake the feeling that the test condition hadn't exactly been fair. Putting an inexperienced driver in a car with worn-out tires wasn't exactly a recipe for success. So feeling a bit guilty, Bryant and Scheer decided to give Chase another shot. They invited him to a follow-up test at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, this time dedicating an entire car just to him. At Nashville, Briscoe made the most of his opportunity.
I end up being faster than their two main drivers, and we go back to the race 2 weeks later, and the main guy sits on the pole.
Bryant began to connect the dots. If their main guy, Kyle Weatherman, was good enough to sit on the pole, Chase might have won the race. Meanwhile, Briscoe wasn't waiting for opportunities to fall into his lap. He began volunteering at the Cunningham Motorsports shop, working tirelessly to stay involved with the team. His persistence paid off, and 10 weeks after the Nashville race, Chad Bryant finally convinced team owner Briggs Cunningham III to give Chase a shot behind the wheel. In 2015, Briscoe made his ARCA debut, finishing 10th in his first race and an impressive 5th in his second. He didn't find victory lane, but he showed speed, composure, and most importantly, he didn't tear up any equipment. For a team on a budget, that was almost as valuable as winning. At the end of the season, Chase decided to personally thank Briggs Cunningham, even though the two had never met. He made the trip to Briggs' home, shook his hand, and expressed his gratitude for the opportunity.
So I pull in there, and he's 87 years old, and me and him hit it off. Like, I still talk to him every week to this day, and he drives me around his property and shows me everything. And at the end, he goes, so what do you want to do next year? And he'd been in ARCA for almost 20 years, never won a championship. And I said, well, I would love to try to get you your first championship. I said, but if you run me in 10 races, 5, 1, I said, even if you don't run me at all, I can't thank you enough, and I greatly appreciate you letting me run 2 races. I never thought I'd get to do that.
Briggs smiled at the ambition, but gave no indication of what might happen next. And then
called me the next day and said, let's run for the championship.
Wow.
in 2016, Chase ran the entire season for Cunningham Motorsports and shocked the racing world by winning 6 races and the championship.
Last lap, Ray.
Well, the white flag is out, and it's been an incredible year. Chase Briscoe in his big-time Ford, car number 77, rolls out of turn number 2, and he starts to head down the back straightaway, trying to cap off a great season. They got the first win of the year at Winchester back in June. Then they went to Iowa and picked up a victory. Lucas Oil Raceway, and then to Pocono, and then Chicagoland. And tonight he's going to add the Kansas Speedway to an outstanding career. The champion tonight wins in the final race of the season.
Driving a car entirely funded by Briggs Cunningham's support, Briscoe outperformed teams backed by millions of dollars. All of this while still sleeping on the couch of a videographer who was making more money filming races than Chase was making by winning them. Among those taking notice was NASCAR star Brad Keselowski, the brother of Brian Keselowski, whom Briscoe had spotted for just a couple years earlier. Impressed by Chase's talent and determination, Brad helped finalize a developmental deal with Ford and offered Chase a full-time ride in the Truck Series with Brad Keselowski Racing. It was the break Briscoe had been fighting for, a chance to prove himself on one of NASCAR's biggest stages. Chase made an immediate impact in his Truck Series debut, finishing 3rd and showing he was ready for the big leagues. Over the course of the season, he racked up 10 top 10 finishes and capped off the year with a victory at Homestead.
And a pretty darn good way if Chase can make it around here to the start-finish line for Brad Keselowski Racing to end their Truck Series career.
Briscoe and Bell, very good friends. And they will have a lot to celebrate and memories to share from this race here tonight at Homestead Miami Speedway. Chase Briscoe is going to win for the first time in his career, and Christopher Bell wins the championship in 2017.
That win wasn't just a milestone for Briscoe. It was historic for Bell, too, who finished 2nd in the race and won his first NASCAR title. It also marked the final race for Brad Keselowski Racing, as the team was scheduled to shut down at the end of 2017.
Chase Briscoe drove a heck of a race. He deserves a lot of credit. Probably should have had a few more wins this year, and little things didn't go his way, and we probably let him down there at Talladega to not have a shot at the championship. But he proved today that he's a worthy competitor and a heck of a race car driver. And I'm looking at him and thinking he's got a big, bright future behind me. I'm happy to just play a role in helping him out along the way.
For Briscoe, it was a bittersweet moment, a triumphant end to a chapter that had given him his first real opportunity, but also an uncertain road ahead as he looked to continue climbing the NASCAR ladder. Despite signing a 2-year deal with Ford, the closure of Brad Keselowski Racing at the end of 2017 left him without a full-time ride. Ford scrambled to piece together a solution, arranging a 17-race shared schedule in the Xfinity Series with Roush Fenway Racing and Stewart-Haas Racing.
The Brad deal is supposed to be 2 years. It shuts down. So then Ford's like kind of thrown in a loop. They put me in the Roush deal. Goes terrible, obviously, in the 60 car. Like, it was just a nightmare.
Yeah. What seemed like a lifeline quickly turned into a challenge. Briscoe spent the season bouncing between teams, shops, and cars, unable to build the consistency needed to thrive at this level. Through the first 13 races, his best finish was a modest 9th, and his performance made it evident that 2018 would be his last under Ford's development program.
I feel very confident I was going to lose my Ford deal.
For Briscoe, the dream felt like it was slipping away once and for all. And the 14th race on his patchwork schedule didn't look like it would offer much relief. It was the inaugural event at the Charlotte Roval, a challenging hybrid road course and oval layout at Charlotte Motor Speedway. For Briscoe, the odds couldn't have been worse. He had never raced on a Roval before and had minimal road racing experience in general. Adding to the challenge was the presence of Austin Cindric, another Ford development driver. Cindric was a road course specialist with a pedigree and connection that far outshined Briscoe's. In final practice, Cindric was nearly a half-second faster than Briscoe, dominating the session. He went on to win the pole by a wide margin, while Briscoe barely scraped into the top 10. Heading into the race, all eyes were on Cindric to get his first Xfinity win. He was the overwhelming favorite, and Briscoe seemed like little more than an afterthought. Briscoe was barely a factor in the early stages of the Charlotte Roval race. He was nowhere to be found during Stage 1 and barely clung to a spot inside the top 10 at the end of Stage 2, a Stage 1, fittingly, by his former roommate Christopher Bell.
Because of his win last week, and out of 17, he'll win Stage 2.
Briscoe knew he was running out of time. His career was on the line, and he needed to make something happen. So his team rolled the dice. They made a bold strategy call, putting Chase in the lead to start Stage 3. The catch? He would be on older tires than Bell and Cindric, who were right behind him. The odds of Briscoe holding the lead, even for a couple of laps, were slim. But Chase Briscoe has been defying slim odds his entire career. Over the next 23 laps, he drove flawlessly, hitting every mark, holding off the road course expert Cindric and the powerhouse Bell. In front of the entire Ford family, who had likely come expecting to see their golden prospect, Austin Cindric, shine, it was Chase Briscoe who stole the show. Against all expectations, Chase Briscoe won the inaugural race at the Charlotte Roval.
And now, as he makes his way through 16 and 17, he gets his first Xfinity Series win.
The first winner on the Roval. Congratulations! This is unbelievable. You know, I was 4 seconds off in practice, and my guys just kept continuing to stick behind me and keep working with me. And God is so good, man. To just get an opportunity to drive race cars and to do it for my hero Tony Stewart, to get a win when I feel like my career's been really bad this year, and I had to get my stock back up.
And I go to the Roval and I win. And now that following Monday, Ford's like, what do we got to do to make this happen for SHR next year?
The Monday after his win at the Charlotte Roval, Ford extended Chase Briscoe's development deal by 2 years. That victory secured a full-time ride in the Xfinity Series with Stewart-Haas Racing for the 2019 and the 2020 seasons. 2019 was a solid year for Chase, consistent, steady, and competitive. He finished 5th in points and earned a victory, but deep down, he knew it wasn't enough. Wins were the standard, and just being competitive wasn't going to cut it. Chase knew he had to do more, a lot more. As the 2020 season approached, Briscoe made his intentions clear. He publicly stated that if he didn't win 10 races that year, his career in NASCAR would probably be over. The pressure was on. Chase had shown flashes of brilliance, but now it was time to prove he could consistently deliver at the highest level. Chase kicked off the 2020 season with a statement, winning the second race of the year at Las Vegas, 2 weeks before the sport was forced into a 2-month hiatus due to the pandemic. When the season resumed at Darlington on May 19th, Chase Briscoe became part of one of the most touching races in NASCAR history.
That race, him racing Kyle.
Wow. Yeah.
One of the most amazing things I've seen. I mean, like, that was an amazing race. Didn't even know at the time you'd been crying in the car.
Oh, it was bad.
I can't imagine what it's like to drive with tears in your eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was, and we should just say that week leading up is when you guys had found out the news that you had lost.
We raced on, I want to say Thursday. The race was supposed to be on a Tuesday, I think. Well, I found out at the racetrack on Tuesday. I was on FaceTime with her. And then it rained all day long, so I had to sit there and wait to go home. And then we came back, I think, on Thursday and raced. So it was 2 days after. And
she had gone in for a checkup. Is that right?
Yeah, it was her 12-week checkup.
12-week checkup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was tough, just being at Darlington and seeing it on FaceTime, seeing her reaction and not being able to do anything, and just knowing that you're stuck 3.5 hours away. And then to go back down there on Thursday, you know, I was a head case. Like I didn't even want to be there, truthfully. And you know, I take the lead, and like I said, I hadn't cried in front of her. Like I was holding all these emotions in, trying to be strong, and then I take the lead, and it was like it all started slowly coming out. And then when we won, I mean, I broke down. I mean, it was bad, but it was obviously good because of why it happened. But I was struggling.
It's got to be a great feeling. You know, you just can't, to watch a race like that, whoever the winner is, you can't help but to be happy for him. Even if you don't know the guy, what an incredible thing. Everybody knows he's been through a lot here lately, knows his story.
His wife, Marissa, expecting their first child, and unfortunately they found out earlier this week that they had lost the baby, and we're sure that we'll hear that emotion. Chase has been very outspoken on social media about what he and his wife have dealt with, and you can see the tears. So much on his mind.
Well, obviously, a very emotional Chase Briscoe. Chase, we know the story this week and what you've been through. We see the emotion on your face. But what a way to end the week with a win.
Yeah, this is for my wife. You know, this is the hardest week I've ever had to deal with, and Scott is so good, man. Even when I took the lead with 50 to go, you know, I was crying inside the race car, and you know, just emotionally, I wasn't there at all. And just, you know, there's nothing other to say than God is just so glorious. And you know, I'm obviously happy to get highpoint.com and Ford Performance Racing School in Victory Lane, but this is more than a race win. This is, you know, the biggest day of my life, you know, after the toughest day of my life. So just then to be able to be the best there is you know, so satisfying.
Chase Briscoe started the 2020 season with one goal in mind: win 10 races or his NASCAR career would be over. He finished the season with 9 wins, but it was still enough. On October 20th, 2020, Stewart-Haas Racing announced that Briscoe would be promoted to the Cup Series in 2021, replacing Clint Boyer in the number 14 Ford Mustang.
The reason you're here is because you are going to drive a Cup Series. Always done. So we wanted you guys to be here. You only get told you're going to the big league one time, so we wanted you guys to all be here together to know about it. So, love the place.
Briscoe's dream had come true, but the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The 2021 season was tumultuous for Chase. Despite his early hopes, he would only secure 2 top 10 finishes, and ironically, they were both on road courses, his weakest discipline. Still, the year had its moments of promise, and in 2022, Briscoe finally broke through.
Into turn 3 for the final time. Driving for his boyhood idol, Tony Stewart, Chase Briscoe becomes the 200th winner in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series. The pit crew got it done with that final stop that allowed Briscoe to hold the lead. Regan Smith.
Well, Chase Briscoe, you had to hold up a couple late race charges, caution flags, a pit stop at the end. Your pit crew doing an amazing job. You, my friend, are the 200th winner in the Cup Series.
That's unbelievable. I was crying the whole last lap. I mean, this is definitely a team win, but just I got to thank everybody that's got me to this point. You know, 7 years ago, I was sleeping on couches, volunteering at race shops, and was literally driving home to give up. And Briggs Cunningham and Carrie Scher and Beth Cunningham gave me an opportunity, and it's led to this. So unbelievable. So blessed to be, you know, driving at the organization of the team and the car that was my hero growing up. So to get this 14 back in Victory Lane, to do it with Mahindra Tractors, their first year in the sport, highpoint.com, Rush Truck Centers, Ford Performance Racing School, everybody that's believed in me, it's unbelievable.
Chase would go on to finish 9th in points that year, showing that he could compete at the highest level. However, 2023 marked a turning point. The cracks began to show in Stewart-Haas Racing. The team was falling apart, and it was becoming clear that the performance of the cars wasn't where it needed to be. Chase went winless that season and finished 30th in points, a far cry from the top 10 he had the year prior. On May 28, 2024, Stewart-Haas Racing announced the team would be shutting down at the end of the year. For Chase, it was a bitter blow. After working so hard to get to the Cup Series and fighting to make an impact, the team that had given him the shot was no longer able to compete at the highest level. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Chase deserved to be there. Less than a month after Stewart-Haas Racing's announcement, Chase Briscoe's future began to take shape in an unexpected way.
Role in that aspect, you know, and whenever Chase comes into the car, whenever I don't even know what to say.
Christopher Bell, Briscoe's old roommate and longtime friend, mistakenly referred to Chase as the future driver of the number 19 car, replacing Martin Truex Jr. in 2025, inadvertently revealing that Briscoe would be joining him at Joe Gibbs Racing the next year. On June 25th, the news became official. Chase Briscoe would replace Martin Truex Jr. in the number 19 for the 2025 season.
And it is my honor to finally announce the full name of our driver next year, Chase Briscoe, in the 19 car.
It's a full circle moment for Briscoe. 10 years after being left in tears on the I-75, feeling like his dream of racing in the NASCAR Cup Series was over, he now inherits one of the best cars in the field and teams up with one of his oldest friends to join a championship-winning organization. Chase Briscoe's life has come a long way from the uncertainty of those early days. He's now a father of 3 and a new member of one of the sport's most successful teams. He is poised to become the face of NASCAR, with a story defined by resilience, ambition, and a relentless drive to succeed. Chase Briscoe's best days might still be ahead of him.